Good evening. So you know me, I'm Nanadhaja Bhikkhu, visiting Malaysia from New Zealand. This is my second time here. So tonight's talk is called Anybody Can Go to Heaven, but why would you want to? We often hear monks teaching the lay people, practice giving Dhamma, be good, and you can have a heavenly rebirth. And there is truth to this. The Buddha even speaks of this, that by being good, by being generous, we can actually have a heavenly rebirth. But we have to remember that when the Buddha spoke to people, unlike me, he knew their minds. I'm not an arahat, just in case anybody was wondering. I'm not an arahat, I can't read your mind. Okay? So I made that quite clear right at the very beginning. So, but the Buddha could. So the Buddha knew his audience, and we know that the Buddha taught according to the capabilities, according to the understanding of the people who he was teaching. And so the Buddha would sometimes say this, be good, go to heaven. Now, a lot of people actually quite like this teaching, because it's easy. It's a lazy person's teaching. And we live in a society today that's full of lazy people. We like fast food, but we're too lazy to cook. So we go to Burger King, or we get something that we can nuke in the microwave oven. These days we want instant gratification. We don't want to do the hard work. We have young people today who I don't even think can cook. But living here in a largely Chinese community, and I'm quite sure that mothers and fathers and all that, they sit at home and they've got the wok out, and they chuck stuff in there, and they just got that spoony thing, and they cook up a storm, The young kids go to 7-Eleven and they grab one of those tub things that you just pour some boiling water and then stir it a bit, and everything has to be instant these days. Everything's got to be easy. And so this concept of just doing good and going to heaven sounds like a really easy thing to do. And I was having a chat with somebody the other day, and they were talking about Buddhists converting to Christianity. And she said to me, I think they're lazy. She said, I think they like this idea of, you can do something wrong, pray for forgiveness and go to heaven. I had to agree with that, that it was a lazy thing for people to do. And as I say, a lot of monks today are teaching this because they don't know our minds. But it's a very easy teaching to give, Slip the monk a few ringgit, give him a bit of food, behave yourself a little bit, and you can have a heavenly rebirth. But these monks who tell us these things, they're shortchanging us, They're ripping us off. They don't know what we're capable of. And so they're teaching basically a false Dhamma, you know. They're selling you a lie. And when a monk starts selling you a lie, you need to stop listening to the monk. You need to just tune out and walk away. I remember some years ago in my teens, I'd gotten a bit of a windfall at work. The job I was working at, they had this thing every 6 months. They would see what you'd earned the week before, and they would double it and give you a bonus in your pay packet. And I knew the girls in the accounting department, so they used to tell me when that particular week was coming up, so I put in lots of overtime and get all bonuses and everything. And so they would double my pay the following week. It was brilliant, it was free money. So on this particular occasion, I had all this cash in my pocket, and I phoned up my girlfriend and I said, meet me in the city. You know, it's Friday night. Remember the days you used to get money in your pay packet? It didn't go to the bank or anywhere. You actually got cash and I got a brown envelope. You know, brilliant. So I phoned up the girlfriend and I said, come to the city and meet me. And I gave her a particular spot to meet her. And then I went downtown. There was a hotel, quite a flash hotel for Auckland City in the 70s, you know, close to the waterfront. And I walked in, I'm wearing jeans, a t-shirt, boots on the feet. And I went up to the counter and I said to the woman behind the counter, I want a room. And she looked at me, scruffy git that I was. And she goes, oh, well, our cheapest rooms are $139 per night. And I looked at her and I said, I don't want a cheap room, lady. And as soon as I pulled my money out, of course, her attitude changed. She was like, oh, got a very nice room. She'd misjudged me. She hadn't been able to read me. So she tried to say, you know, that I couldn't get the best, you know. And this is what these monks do when they try to say to us, aim for heavenly rebirth. You know, they're shortchanging us. They're actually treating us like idiots. They're treating us like fools, you know. And so if a monk does teach you this, walk away, because he's disrespecting you big time. Now, it may sound nice, you know, because what people say to me is, yeah, you have a heavenly rebirth, and then you hang out in heaven and you wait for the next Buddha to come. He will teach you the Dhamma and you'll obtain enlightenment. Well, there's a couple of flaws in that particular theory. First of all, karma is a funny beast. You can do very, very virtuous things in this life. Now, that's not a guarantee of a rebirth in one of the higher planes. You see, we can have karma from past lives that has to come to fruition. And karma comes to fruition in its own time. So, no matter how good you've been, if that karma is due to right, you could be taken down to one of the lower realms. Reborn in one of the hell realms, in an animal realm, in a hungry ghost realm, depending on what karma is awaiting you. But let's assume that we get this heavenly rebirth that we're chasing after. There's no guarantee you're still going to be in heaven when the next Buddha arises. I think some people are working on the theory that, you know, they say this Buddha's dispensation is it's supposed to last 5,000 years, and we're halfway through it now. So, if I die today, then I'll have about 2,500 years before the next Buddha arises. It doesn't work like that. We don't know when the next Buddha is due. But we do know that there are some very, very long spaces in time between the arisings of Buddhas. So you can get this heavenly rebirth, but when your time is up in that heavenly realm, you're going to fall to a lower realm. And the next Buddha still hasn't arrived. And so there's no guarantee that you're going to be there when he is there. I have to read from the Iti-Ratana. This was said by the Blessed One, said by the Arahant, so I've heard. When the Deva is about to pass away from the company of Devas, 5 omens appear. His garlands wither, his clothes get soiled, sweat comes out of his armpits, a dullness descends on his body. He no longer delights in his own Deva seed. Now, a day in the heavenly realms is a lot longer than a day here in the human realm. So you imagine this Deva is about to pass away. But he's still going to have a long, long time compared to human time. And it says here his garlands start to wither. His clothes get soiled, sweat comes out of his armpits, and dullness descends upon his body. So for a long time, he knows that he's about to move out of a heavenly realm. What suffering must that bring to that Deva? The Devas, knowing from this that this Deva's son is about to pass away, encourage him with 3 sayings. Go from here, Honourable Sir, to a good destination. Having gone to a good destination, gain the gain that is good to gain. Having gained the gain that is good to gain, become well established. And when this was said, a certain monk said to the Blessed One, what law is the Deva's reckoning of going to a good destination? What is their reckoning of the gain that is good to gain? What is their reckoning of becoming well established? The human state, monks, is the Deva's reckoning of going to a good destination. Right? So we're in a good destination. This is the Devas have figured this one out. The human state is a good destination. Having become a human being, acquiring conviction in the Dhamma and Vinaya taught by the Tathagata, this is the Deva's reckoning of the gain that is good to gain. And when this conviction is settled within one, rooted, established and strong, not to be destroyed by any Brahman or contemplative, Deva, Mara or Brahma, or anyone else in the world, this is the Deva's reckoning of becoming well established. It's important here to become well established in the Dhamma Vinaya. A conviction that is unbreakable. When a Deva passes away from the company of Devas, through his lifespan's ending, 3 sounds sound forth. The Deva's encouragement, go from here, Honourable Sir, to a good destination, to companionship with human beings. By becoming a human being, acquire a conviction unsurpassed in true Dhamma. Now this one's very important. True Dhamma. We have to be really, really careful, because there's a lot of false Dhamma or a lot of watered down Dhamma out there. So we really need to be sure that the Dhamma that we are hearing, the Dhamma that we are learning, is the true Dhamma. We're lucky today because we have the suttas. They've been written down, they've been translated, and while sometimes we may lose a little bit in the translation. It's still a pretty good translation, you know. So whatever you hear, whatever people tell you, we can go back to the suttas. We need to make sure it's true Dhamma. That conviction of yours in true Dhamma, well taught, should be settled, rooted, established, undestroyed as long as you live. Having abandoned bodily misconduct, verbal misconduct, mental misconduct, and whatever else is flawed, having done with the body what's skillful, and much that is skillful with speech, having done what's skillful with the heart without limit, with no acquisitions, then having made much of the basis of merit through giving and establishing other mortals in true Dhamma and the holy life. With this sympathy, the Devas, when they know a Deva is passing away, encourage him, come back, Deva, again and again. And that's the irony, they keep telling the Deva to come back again and again, because they really believe that what they have is a wonderful experience. I mean, if we think about it, they don't want for anything in the heavenly realms. All the sense desires that they could hope for, they can have. And so, for the Devas, this destination back into the heavenly realms is the place to go. So they haven't quite got it correct here even, you know, because they're encouraging the Deva to keep going back for another heavenly rebirth. But the problem with the heavenly realms is we don't accumulate any virtuous karma while we're in the heavenly realms. We may not be creating any non-virtuous karma, but we're not creating any virtuous karma. And so we just get stuck on the cycle of samsara over and over and over. And while we may get a heavenly rebirth, we don't know what kind of heavenly rebirth we're going to get. We could be born in a country where you can't hear the teachings of the Buddha. You could be born into a family that doesn't believe in the teachings of the Buddha. You may be born into very, very poor circumstances. You know, we can't guarantee what sort of human rebirth that we're going to have. I was saying, when I first came to Buddhism, I was up in northern India, a place called McLeod Ganj, Dharamsala, and it's where the Dalai Lama's temple is. The Dalai Lama, a couple of times of the year, he's in Dharamsala, and he gives public talks at his meeting. You know, they last a couple of weeks. They're free to get in, and everybody's welcome. And the town is full. It's only a very small place, McLeod Ganj, and the town is full of people. And to get to the Dalai Lama's temple, you go down a bit of a steep road, and the temple's down the bottom. When you come to this steep road, it's lined on either side with beggars with their hands out, looking for a few rupees. Someone actually sat right outside the temple gate with their hand out for a few rupees. They don't even get to go inside the temple to listen to the Dalai Lama give his teachings. They've been born human, but they're too busy trying to get a few rupees. I've seen it in Thailand. You know, there's literally thousands of temples in Thailand. And the gates are open for the public to go in. You can listen to Dhamma talks and practice meditation. But again, when you get to some of these temples, on the roads outside the temples, there are people with all these food stalls, amulet stalls, knick-knack stalls, like little Buddhas and And these people don't go into the temple to listen to the teachings. They're too busy trying to make money. You know? These are people born in what you would call a Buddhist country. And yet they don't go into the temples to listen to the teaching. So a human rebirth is not even a guarantee that you're going to get this opportunity, you know, which is really, really quite sad. As I said before, we could be reborn as a hungry ghost, be reborn in the hell realms. In the Pansu Sutta, it says, then the Blessed One, picking up a little bit of dust with the tip of his fingernail, said to the monks, what's more, monks, the little bit of dust on my fingernail or the great earth? The great earth is far greater, Lord. The little bit of dust the Blessed One has picked up with the tip of his fingernail is next to nothing. It doesn't even count. It is of no comparison. It's not even a fraction, this little bit of dust the Blessed One has picked up with the tip of his fingernail when compared to the great earth. In the same way, monks, few are the beings who, on passing from the Deva realms, are reborn amongst Devas. Far more are the beings who, on passing away from the Deva realms, are reborn in hell, in the animal womb, in the domain of the hungry ghost. So we can see just how difficult, I mean, if it's difficult to be reborn into the Deva realm, how difficult is it to be reborn in the human realm? But the Chigala Sutta answers that question. Chigala Sutta, that's the sutta where the Buddha talks about, you know, how the earth is covered with a great mass of water. And he says, imagine that there's a blind turtle swimming in the great ocean. And that blind turtle only comes to the surface to breathe once every 100 years. So now imagine there's a yoke bobbing on the surface of the water, being blown to the north, being blown to the south, being blown to the east, being blown to the west, tossed about on the waves. He said that turtle has got more chance of poking its head through that yoke than we have of having a decent human rebirth. So this shows just how rare it is to get not only a human rebirth, but a fortunate rebirth. So we're here tonight. We've had a fortunate rebirth. We've been born in a time when we still have the teachings of the Buddha. They've not been corrupted too much. You know? We're allowed to practice Buddhism. And here in Malaysia, you have the freedom of religion. Some countries wouldn't allow you to practice Buddhism. They wouldn't allow you to have Buddhist books. You know? So we do. So we can see we have a fortunate rebirth. You know? So we've got an opportunity to actually put an end to the cycle of samsara. The goal of any Buddhist is Nibbana. But that can be difficult. You know, it's becoming an arahant is going to be hard enough for your average monastic who doesn't have a lot of worldly cares. How much more difficult is it to become an arahant for the householder, for the layperson who's got to be concerned with going out and earning a wage, supporting a family, putting your children through school, keeping a roof over their head, feeding them, clothing them, you know. Now, if a monk can have difficulty without all these worries, just how much more difficult is it for the lay person to become their own? But you can get stream entry. You could become a Sotapanna. That is not too difficult. Dhamma part of verse 178 says, far better than sovereignty over the earth, or far better than going to the abode of the devas, or far better than ruling supreme over the entire universe, is the attainment of Sotapatti fruition. Not Arahant, not Anagama, not Sakadagami, Sotipanna. Sotipanna. So, rather than focusing on a practice that takes us to heaven, we should concentrate on a practice that leads to stream entry. With the attainment of stream entry, we are guaranteed no more than 7 rebirths. We cannot fall into one of the lower realms. And any human rebirth you have will be a good human rebirth. So that kind of sounds to me a lot better than taking the chance on a heavenly rebirth and then not knowing where we're going to go next, you know. So, how do we go about attaining stream entry? A stream enterer has broken the lower 3 fetters. These are the views of self-identity, doubt, and the belief in rites and rituals, or grasping at habits and practices. You know, often we, with rites and rituals, we get caught up in things that we do traditionally, you know, and we worry so much about them that we forget to actually do the practice. You know, it's quite a common thing to see. You know, I see many things where people are so focused, they've got to do this. This is the way we do it. This is the way, you know, and they're not actually practicing Buddhism. You know, they're practicing a whole bunch of rites and rituals. And it's you see it sometimes. You know, people come into the temples and they take 5 precepts. You know, you've got to go and sit in front of a monk and take 5 precepts. And often the precepts have even become a ritual for people. There's no meaning to the taking the 5 precepts. They're words that people say because that's the tradition. You know. Now, I'm not saying not to take 5 precepts, but when we take the 5 precepts, we actually have to try to live by the 5 precepts. They have to mean something to us. I've been in temples before where, you know, you're putting people on the 5 precepts, and usually on the 5th precept, you know, that's the one to abstain from intoxicants that lead to heedlessness. And so the monks there and everybody's in Anjali and done 4 of the precepts. They get to the 5th one and you see this habit, the fingers going down, which is very similar. I don't know if you do it here in Malaysia. In the West, when we say something that we don't mean, we cross our fingers. You know? So we actually say we're not breaking the promise because our fingers were crossed. I'm not saying this on the 5th precept. The finger's going down, and it means exactly the same thing. I'm going to say it, but I'm not going to do it. So the people, they leave the temple and then they go off and they just live the way they would normally live, you know, and it doesn't matter if they break the precepts, they're quite happy, you know, they've been to the temple, they've taken 5 precepts. It's become a tradition, it's become a ritual, you know. We were discussing tonight, I often eat from my alms bowl. It's something I've done ever since I became a monk, was for the most part to eat directly out of my alms bowl. Now this is a tradition as well. I mean, and actually there's nothing in the monk's rules that actually says I must eat from an alms bowl. You know, when I have one, you go out, you do Penchala, you put food into your bowl and you eat out of the bowl. You know, it's quite simple. But sometimes you find yourself in places, you might be invited to do a house Dhamma, for instance. You know, if I go out to a house Dhamma and the people have set up plates and all that sort of thing, I will eat from the plates. Because for me to insist upon eating from my alms bowl, I'm being a traditionalist, you know, and possibly a bit of a show-off. Maybe I'm trying to make the other monks feel a bit bad, you know, so why are you eating from a plate? I'm eating from my bowl, I'm a good monk. You know, well, as soon as you start doing that, you're not being a good monk, you're just being very, very traditional, you know. And so, it's one of these things that we can give these things away. As I say, eating from the alms bowl there's no rule that says a monk has to do so, you know. And so I'm not going to get caught up in a tradition, you know, because it becomes a ritual, it becomes a rite, you know, and that's not what it's about. We want to try and avoid rites and rituals as much as we can, you know. This is why I say that when we take the 5 precepts, the 5 precepts have to mean something, you know. And so we try to the best of our ability, you know, always stress to the best of our ability, because we're human, we make mistakes. You know, so that's okay. You know, we make a mistake, we go, oh gosh, I made a mistake, I wasn't supposed to do that. You know, we regret making the mistake, and we try a little bit harder the next time. So we don't get caught up on it, but they still have to have some sort of a meaning, otherwise it's just rites and rituals. You know, so these are the lower fetters: self-identity, doubt, and grasping at habits and practices. So there are 4 factors that lead to stream entry: associating with people of integrity, listening to the true Dhamma, giving proper attention to the Dhamma, and practicing according to the Dhamma. So associating with people of integrity, you know, in the Upada Sutta, you know, that's the one where Ananda is speaking to the Buddha. And, you know, he says, associating with good people is half the holy life. And the Buddha's like, no. He's, you know, associating with virtuous people is the whole of the holy life, you know. Now I know it's not always easy. We go to work and not everybody at our workplace has the same virtues, the same standards that we might have, you know. So we have no choice sometimes, you know, we're associating with people who may not have integrity. But we don't have to associate with them outside of the work hours, you know. Outside of the work hours, we're with our Dhamma friends. These are the people who give us support, you know. These are the people of integrity. And so we try and spend as much of our time as we can with people of integrity. And so the next one is listening to the true Dhamma, you know. So we've got to be able to work out what the true Dhamma is, you know. And the one thing in the Kalama Sutta is very clear on is, you know, we don't believe something just because it's been told to us by, you know, some clever monk or, you know, some very talented speaking person. We need to check all of the time, are these the teachings of the Buddha? You know? We need to be sure that we're listening to the true Dhamma, because as I say, there's a lot of false Dhamma. There's a lot, what I call Dhamma light. You know? It kind of sounds a bit like Dhamma, but it's not really the true Dhamma. You know? And we've got to be very, very careful. It's because what happens is, you'll get monks, for instance, who really want to be popular monks. They want to be able to say, look at how many disciples I have. Look at how many hits I get on YouTube. You know? And so they'll alter the Dhamma to fit in with their audience. You know, I've been asked in the past, you know, to go and give Dhamma talks. And then they said to me, just don't talk about karma and rebirth because they don't like it. So I go and give a Dhamma talk on karma and rebirth, you know, because it's part of the teachings of the Buddha. You know, so I'll give a Dhamma talk and I will bring karma and rebirth into it. And I'm not going to deny karma and rebirth just because an audience doesn't want to hear it, just because an audience doesn't like the sound of it. You know, and often in the West you'll see this being practiced. And the reason it's done is because a lot of people in the West have rejected Christianity, and karma and rebirth is too much like sin and going to heaven or going to hell. You know, consequences of sin or of not sinning. You know, when you do good, you go to heaven, you do bad, you go to hell. And so often in the West, when they hear karma and rebirth, they reject it outright because it's too much like a religion that they've rejected. And so, you know, often with these people, you know, I'll tell them that they can put karma and rebirth to one side. You know? But I certainly won't tell them they're allowed to reject it, you know, because that wouldn't be in keeping with the teachings of the Buddha. And so we have to make sure that it's the true Dhamma that we're listening to. And we've got to give proper attention to the Dhamma. You know? I mean, I've been in temples where while the Dhamma talk's been going on, people are sending text messages to their friends and, you know, having little chitty-chatties. And, you know, they can't turn their mobile phone off because they might miss something important. Something a bit more important than, you know, the Dhamma. And so they're not actually giving proper attention to the Dhamma. And then we have to practice the Dhamma according to the Dhamma. So that means not playing with the Dhamma. You know, I often tell the story of when I first became a Buddhist, still a lay person, and I used to take the 5 precepts, you know, have a little Buddha statue in the room, and I'd get up in the morning and I'd take the 5 precepts, you know, and then I'd go off and I'd do whatever it was I had to do during the day. But on a Friday and a Saturday, I used to get up and I used to take 4 precepts. I missed the 5th one out because I figured that there's a good chance that I might go drinking with my friends after work. That's playing with the Dhamma. That's not practicing the Dhamma according to the Dhamma. You know, that's playing games with the Dhamma. And You see that happening a lot of the times. In the West, we've got this thing with, they all say Buddhism's great because it's got no thou shalt nots in it. If any of you are familiar with the Bible, they have 10 commandments. And so you have things like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, all these sorts of things, But in the West, we run around and go, oh yeah, Buddhism's great because it doesn't have any thou shalt nots. It's just got a few, it's probably best if you don't. It's best if you don't kill. It's best if you don't steal. We say, but you're allowed to, it's okay. No, it's not okay. But that's the way we treat it, And this is not practicing the Dhamma in accordance with the Dhamma, This is practicing the Dhamma in accordance with how I would like the Dhamma to fit in with my lifestyle, And this is not the way to practice. So, associating with people of integrity, listening to the true Dhamma, giving proper attention to the Dhamma, and practicing according to the Dhamma. So, listening to the true Dhamma has 5 rewards. A person hears what they've not heard before. He clarifies what he's heard. Sometimes we hear things and we're not quite sure of what we heard. But we keep listening and we can clarify it. He gets rid of doubts. He straightens his views out. So views of a self, of a permanent self, views like this. We start to straighten these views out. And his mind becomes scrambled. And he begins to give appropriate attention when he listens to the Dhamma. Yoniso-manasikara. So, you see, there is some work involved in becoming a Satipatthana, but it's nothing that we can't do. There's not even any mention of meditation in here. One of the hardest things people seem to struggle with is meditation. But it doesn't even say you have to be a meditator to become a Satipatthana. I'm quite sure that if you became a Satipatthana, you would want to start meditating. Actually, I'm quite sure once you started to associate with people of integrity and you started to listen to the Dhamma, then meditation would become a part of your life, But you don't actually need to be a meditator to become a Satipatthana. And as I said, we attain stream entry, we are guaranteed no more than 7 rebirths. And that is a maximum of 7 rebirths. You could come back in your next life and become an Arahant. So you've cut it down to 1 rebirth. Certainly sounds a lot better than popping up and down to these deeper realms all the time, And so, I just urge all of you, give up the idea of a heavenly rebirth, because anybody can go to heaven, but why would you want to? Thank you. Any questions?